क्या कमी बुझाया
सोच रही चाय चाय से चाय मंगा
Good
के पीना
evening,
पड़ेगा।
welcome in RNQ Easy classes. Block number 2,
हाँ
Unit
तो
number
विरोध
4,
कर रहा है कि ने
Act and Potency. 4.1 The concept of act and potency has historically delineated the dramatic antinomy felt by Greek thought with Heraclitus and Parmenides. Heraclitus held that everything is fleeting, transit, ephemeral, becoming, whereas Parmenides was of the opinion that the sensible, mergeable, continent and phenomenal world is pure illusion, which requires of critical intelligence judgment in favor of the unique, absolutely immutable being, absolute perfection and fullness. The efforts of Plato succeeded only of fragmenting the being of Parmenides, multiplying it as many times as there are ideas in his world of ideas, the multiple and becoming by reduced to mere appearance to a shadow of the true and single being of the ideas. The Aristotelian proposal of act and potency finally offered a solution, taking a middle position between the Parmenidist immobilism and the fluent becoming of Heraclitus. The proposal has saved the permanence of reality and its uninterpreted flux and becoming, giving the receiving later, and Christian philosophers accepted the same proposal on account of its conformity to biblical realism, which is both static and dynamic. 4.2 Act. The term act comes from the Latin root activus, which means with an entity of whatever kind which perfects and determines a thing in its being. A perfection itself, it includes the power of faculty, operations of the faculty, accidents, essence, substance, form, and the act existing whatever a being has or is in a positive manner is an act. It is perfection itself. There are as many kinds of act as there are kinds of being. For every being as such is a perfection. The act are distinguished as the following: act of essence. The act of essence is the act which perfects and determines a being in its species. It is that constitutive principles of a being which makes a being just this particular kind of being and nothing else. Act of existing is the act of being. Is it is unlimited perfection. Act of property is the act of perfecting or determining an essence in which the entity of property follows necessarily from its essence. Act of accident is the act of perfections and determinations of being in which the entity of accident does not flow necessarily from the essence of the being. And example: dark hair, dark skin, one's weight, height, etc. Pure act is subsisting perfections without any limited. It lacks no entity, no nor can it receive an increase of entity as it possesses all possible actuality. There are pure acts both in the order of existence and essence. The order of existence implies the act of existence of all beings, and the exercise of occurrence of happening of all operations. The order of essence implies all the determinations of beings which make them be such or such. The pure act in the order of existence is God. The pure acts in order of essence are angels whose substantial forms are not restricted. Mixed act is a composition of perfections and potentiality. Example: all corporeal beings. Mixed act in the order of existence proper, it includes every finite being insofar it is composed to the act of existing. And complete essence. Mixed act in the order of complete essence. Complete essence is a compositions of substance and accidents. Mixed act in the order of substance. Every corporeal substance is composed of prime matter and substantial form. Mixed act in the order of operations. Every operations of a finite being is composed of exercise and determinations. 4.3 Potency. Potency comes from the Latin root Potentia, which means power. Potency is the capacity of for act. Is the capacity of aptitude in reference to something which a being is not or has not, but which it can be or can receive. For example, hydrogen has the act of hydrogen, oxygen has the act of oxygen, but both have the potency of water. They're actually hydrogen and oxygens, but potentially water. Water on the other hand is actually water, but it is potentially hydrogen and oxygen. Since the water has the aptitude to be resolved into them. There are two main kinds of potency, active potency and passive potency. Active potency is the capacity of communicate act or perfections to another. It is the power of action such as the power of hearing. Since such a power in itself already confers certain perfections upon its subject, it is an act which respect to its subject, hence it may also be called first act. Passive potency is the capacity to receive act or perfections from another. Example, a child has the capacity for acquiring knowledge from parents and teachers. There are two kinds of passive potency, determinate passive potency and indeterminate passive potency. Determinate passive potency is that which contains an act and is in potency to some further act. Example, substance for accidents. The complete essence for the act of existing. Indeterminate passive potency is the principles of an act but which itself contains no act. Its pure potency. Example, prime matter. Act is limited only by potency.
कितना ध्यान से सुन रहा है पढ़ाई कर रही कौन सा इसमें
ये ये एक्चुअली मुझे रिकॉर्डिंग करके भेजना होता है। एक मतलब वो एनजीओ टाइप चलाते हैं, उनको ये रिकॉर्डिंग करके भेजना होता है। मेरा जो स्टडी है मैं बैप से कर रही हूँ।
बात कर रहे
हाँ,
फर्स्ट ईयर
को मालूम रहते जयदीप क्यों मालूम रहते पढ़ाई के
act is limited only by potency. The notions of act does not include any limitations for act is perfections and potency is limitations and hence imperfection. But if act is limitations or pure act would be a contradiction in terms for pure act excludes the possibility of limitations and imperfections, hence a pure act limited of itself would be a contradiction in terms. However, it does not mean that any act which exists in reality is without any limitations. It is true that it does not include limitation, nevertheless it does not exclude it either. Hence, if an act is found to be limited, it is not limited by itself but by the limiting principle in which it is received, that is by potency. Potency is limited of itself.
दीपक को सत्ता नहीं किया
चार्जर
सर्कल लगा है सर्कल लगा हुआ है
Potency is limited of itself. ये रिकॉर्डिंग करके भेजना होता है मुझे
किसी जो
by its very nature potency is a limited. अरे एड्स का
तो क्या करती है इसका
रिकॉर्डिंग करने पे इसको भेजना होता है मेरे को।
मतलब
बताती बाद में,
बता देना
रिकॉर्डिंग चल रहा है। By its very nature potency is limited for respective principles of perfections. It is a capacity of perfections. All the same, in a certain sense potency may be said to be limited by the act to which it is ordered and which it receives. For instance, the potency of Water to be heated is a potency to be heated and therefore limited by the act of heat. It is not a potency to be a human person. For this reason, potency and are distinguished and diversified. According to the act to the which they refer, the following conclusions can be drawn from the fact that act is limited only by potency. If there is an act no limited by potency is infinite for whatever is not limited in is unlimited or infinite. B, if there is an act not limited by potency, it is unique for two or more infinite acts in the same order and impossible, since such acts would either be different or not. If they are not different, they then they are not two but one and the same. If they are different, one would have to have a perfections which is lacking. In other words, in other hands, this other would not be infinite but finite. Hence,
Just I'm asking.
of necessity, an infinite act is to be unique.
एक हफ्ते पहले तो बताना पड़ेगा तभी अरेंज कर पाएंगे कैसा मैनेज करना है नहीं करना पड़ेगा
Potency and act are really distinct. Potency and act are really distinct, for that which perfects can't be really the same as the perfectible. Otherwise, the perfectible would keep itself an act which it does not have, so that being would come from non-being. Besides, if potency and act were not really distinct, that which limits and that which is limited would be really the same, so that act would limit itself from the real distinctions of potency and act. It follows that nothing can be potency and
Just revision and all.
act in the same respect. For this would imply that which perfects is really the same as that which is perfected or
बोर्ड
perfectible.
से पढ़ाई करनी पड़ेगी अगर आएंगे तो
Act and potency enter into a real compositions. Act and potency are merely principles which, by their union, form a complete whole. Hence, the real distinctions between an act and its potency. It is not distinction between two separate entities or beings, but a distinctions between two
and week
principles
off
of
कितने दिन में ले सकते हैं?
principles of
One week
one
में एक
and
बार
the same reality, namely a metaphysical distinction. 4.4 Potency and possibility. Possibility is objective. Potency is the capacity of aptitude of a being for receiving existence. A possible passage from a state of relative non-existence to existence, what is not yet but can be. There are two kinds of possibility: subjective possibility, logical possibility, and objective possibility. Subjective possibility is that conceivability in which we do not any contradictions. A being of subject possibility is a being which was not, is not, and will not be out. Conceivable, it has existence only in the mind. Example, a human with 100 eyes. Objective possibility. Ontological possibility is the real possibility of an object which in fact is not contradictory. For example, when we derive the concept of gold and mountain, our intellect perceives that these concepts are compatible and can be unity into one concept, which component parts do not contradict each other. Hence, we can base the possible golden mountain upon the continent realities from which we have abstracted the concept of mountain and gold. Possibility also differs from potency, for every possibility implies a certain act actuality. Hence, it is always an objective potency, whereas potencies need not always contain an act, is in the case of pure potency. Primer matter, possibility and impossibility. A thing is possible inasmuch as it is existable, inasmuch as it can be. A thing is possible in itself intrinsically, when the concept of it involves no contradictions. For the which involves contradictions in its every concept is not a thing but the absence of being. It is self-cancelling and amounts to zero. A square circle is a contradiction in itself. It is simply nothing. Such a thing lacks intrinsic possibility. It is called a thing merely by figure, analogy, and by reasons of want to of words of the expression subsidy negation. It is intrinsically, absolutely, or metaphysically impossible. What is intrinsically impossible simply can't be even by a miracle of God. This God does not mean the God power is limited. God no can't produce what is intrinsically impossible, because this is nothing at all. It is nothing or nothing. What is producible is always some particular thing. The first point of establish where there is a question of the possibility of anything is the fact of its intrinsic possibility. When a thing is intrinsically possible, it is exceedable, it is absolutely or metaphysically possible by the power of God. Through it may not be possible by the power of creatures. It may be intrinsically possible
एक कलर का बुक है ना छोटा सा
and yet lack the extrinsic and relative possibility of creature creature causes to produce it. Thus a mountain of gold or a human with 100 eyes is intrinsically possible. It involves no contradictions in itself. 4.5 Potency and change motion. Change in the transitions of passes from potency to act or from act to potency. There are three conditions required for change. Starting point, terminus, a cue term from which it should have a definite starting point. Ending point, terminus, ad quam term towards which it should have a definite starting point, to end up. A real transitions from one point to state to another kinds of change. Positive change and negative change. Positive change is the transitions or passes from potency to act. There are four kinds of positive change: creation, generation, accidental change, and local. Local change. Creation is a passage from mere possibility to actuality, that is from non-existence to existence. Example: creation of the cosmos. Generations is a passage or transitions from one substantial form to another in which a new substantial form is acquired. Example: generations of a plant. Accidental change is the passage from the accidents to another. Example: water vaporizes to steam at 212 Fahrenheit 100 Celsius. Local change is the passage from the one place to another. Negative change is the passage from actuality potentiality. There are three kinds of negative change: corruption, privation, and inhalations. Corruption is a passage from one substantial form to another in which privation is the loss of the previous accidental form. Example: becoming blind. And inhalations is the passage from existence to non-existent. Example: soul of animal in death. 4.6 Potency and evolution. Evolution of the cosmos through the Big Bang. Albert Einstein in 1905 proposed of the Special theory of relativity, in which he conveyed the effects of a body accelerating with a velocity almost equivalent to that of light based on the relativity field equations. Many scientists describe the beginning and the possible end of the universe. It was Alexander Friedman who tried to solve the Fried equations are suggesting the possible beginning and end of the universe. Mathematically, the greatness of Friedman was that he made his predictions when there was no observational evidence for a universe that would expand and evolve with time. Expansion of the universe became a widely accepted concept towards the middle of the 20th century, and the foreigners of this theory by the Belgian priest George Lemaître and Edwin Paul Howell However, Lemaitre was one of the pioneers who applied Albert Einstein's theory of general relativity to cosmology and proposed that the cosmos was confined to a teeny atom, and that an explosions expanded this universe envisions all the heavenly bodies squeezed into a super compact primordial matter called the primeval atom. Then all at once there was this moment of the Big Bang. The theoretical musings of Lemaitre and Friedman were brought to the forefront by the investigations of Edwin Paul Hubble, an American astronomer who established on his observational evidence that the glaciers are not at rest in space. He developed the theory of the Big Bang to its full structure. He is also noted for the discovery of the Andromeda Galaxy, the Hubble constant, Hubble's law, and for his numerous other observations from his famous Mount Wilson Observatory. He also observed the redshift of a number of galaxies and found that the farther the distance of the galaxy, the greater is the redshift. This showed that the farthest galaxies are moving at a greater speed than the closer ones. Evolution applied through cells. The bodies of animals and plants are made up of separate units called cells. The human body, for example, consists approximately of 100 trillion cells, but most are too small to see unless highly magnified. All cells consist of a very complex living material called protoplasm and are made up of three basic parts. They have a thin skin called the cell membrane. This membrane encloses a jelly-like substance called cytoplasm and a small
बरं तुम्ही घेणार का मासे मग तुम्ही मला व्हॉट्सअप पाठवून द्या बरं ठीक ठीक ठीक
क्या कर रही थी अभी तक? अभी तक क्या कर रही थी? बड़बड़ क्या है वो? बताना।
object called a nucleus. Most cells have a single nucleus bonded by a nuclear envelope or membrane with pores. Pores provide continuity between the nucleus and the cytoplasm. Cytoplasm, the nucleus contains. ईयरफोन लेगी मेरे बैग से लेके आ. ईयरफोन ले प्लीज.
कितने टाइम लगेगा?
मेरे ईयरफोन में
जल्दी जल्दी पढ़ लो.
क्या मेरे बैग लेके आ.
कर क्या रही है? मेरे को पता नहीं है.
Nucleus contains some more discrete structures known as nuclei, which are state sites of ribosomal ribonucleic acid. RNA synthesis. Hereditary information is in the DNA content with the chromosomes in the nucleus. This information is transcribed into RNA in the nucleus, which then serves as a messenger. The messenger moves outside the nucleus to the ribosomes, where it guides the synthesis of proteins. Thus, the nucleus directs the activity of the cell. There are many There are many tiny living objects in the cytoplasm called organelles. All cells contain round a sausage-shaped organelles known as mitochondria. These are the power plants of a cell. Mitochondria cause certain enzymes which release energy from food. This process is called respiration. Tiny organelles ribosomes float in the cytoplasm. Ribosomes contain a chemical known as ribonucleic acid RNA. They take part in the manufacture of proteins. Organelles called lysosomes contain enzymes which are released when cells are injured. Cytoplasm also contains a number of flattened spaces known as Golgi body. This stores useful substances before they are secreted from the cell. All cells contain a nucleus which contains one or more discrete structures known as nuclei, which are sites of reversible RNA synthesis. The nucleus has a membrane with holes through which chemicals have moved to and from the cytoplasm, and it is rich in a chemical called deoxyribonucleic acid DNA. This chemical is a part of the chromosomes which only become visible in a nucleus, which a cell divides DNA in a concern with protein manufacture and plays an essential part in cells division. It is a long thread-like molecule similar in shape to a rope ladder twist into a spiral. The upright sides of the ladder are made of alternate sugar and phosphate molecules joined into a chain. The rungs of the ladder are made of chemical bases of which are the four types: adenine, guanine, cytosine, and thymine. They are often referred to by their initial letters A, G, C, and T. The genetic code is formed by the sequence in which these four chemical bases are arranged along the length of a DNA molecule. Most of cells' DNA contained in the chromosomes in its nucleus, but proteins are made in the cytoplasm of a cell. Somehow, the coded instruction for protein manufacture must pass from the nucleus to the cytoplasm, and then the transmit. This task is carried out by two types of substance, such as ribonucleic acid RNA, which works in conjunction with microscopic granules in the cytoplasm. Ribosomes. लेना जा ले जा मेरे बैग से उठ
जो तू लेकर मेरे बैग में हेडफोन
acid RNA, which works in conjunction with microscopic granules in the cytoplasm. Ribosomes, two types of called messenger RNA and transfer RNA in the nucleus. A part of the DNA molecule opens up, exposing the gene for a particular protein. The messenger RNA copies the sequence of bases which make the gene. The transfer RNA picks up amino acid molecules and carries them to the ribosome, where the amino acids are linked together, forming a protein molecule. The sequence of amino acids in the protein molecule depends upon the way the transfer RNA molecules fit into the messenger RNA, and this depends upon the sequence of bases in the gene. It has now been revealed that in terms of the number of genes in our cells, we humans are only a little better than the lowly roundworm, which has just over 19,000 genes, and the fruit fly that has some 13,600. Results published by two teams of scientists in February 2001 put the number of genes in the human genome at around 30,000. That is less than a third of what is estimated earlier. See 1 lakh. However, humans being very thrifty with their genes are able to do more better genes than other species. For instance, for producing only one protein per gene as believed earlier, the average human gene has been found to produce 3 different proteins. Moreover, each gene directly interacts with 4 or 5 on an average. and thus functions in a collective manner. It is also surprising to know that in these 75% of repetitive DNA sequences, which are known as junk DNA and were considered to be useless, there are sequences that are still active and may be coding for proteins. The genome sequence also shows that every person on Earth shares 99.99% of the same genetic code with all other people, a fact that should help settle the questions of racial or ethnic superiority history of human evolution. Scientists agree that life did not always exist on Earth. They estimate that it began about 4 billion years ago. About 4 billion years ago, arises the first prokaryotic cells appeared on Earth on account of the balance of Earth's own internal dynamics and its positions in the structure of the solar system. Matter existed as solid, liquid, and gas and flowed from one form into another to provide in essentially creative chemical bomb of which arises the first prokaryotic living cell. The primal prokaryotic cells had the power of organize themselves as did the stars and galaxies. The cells could as also remember significant information, even the patterns necessary to knit together another living cell. The cells also possessed new order of creativity to catch the pockets of energy hurled by the sun at the speed of light, and to use this Gondwana's food arises and the prokaryotes. Hydrogen from the ocean had released oxygen into Earth's system, which saturated the land and the seas. However, the prokaryotes unknowingly pushed Earth's system into an extremely unstable conditions by altering Earth's chemistry with these element of explosive power. Consequently, the prokaryote communities preside as their interiors were set ablaze by the oxygen, but out of this crisis arose Vikingala, a new and radically advanced being. Vikingala was the first eukaryotic cell which was capable of saving oxygen dangerous energy for its own purposes. The eukaryotes invented meiotic sex, by which the universe diversity expanded a hundredfold through sexual union. Finally,
हाँ ये लोग के ऊपर नहीं होंगे ये 4.5 हो गए
चल रोशना
finally, the eukaryotes took that daring step of submerging themselves into a larger mind as a trillion of them gathered together and evolved ergos, the first multicellular animal about 600 million years ago. There arose the multicellular organisms. They included the corals, worms, insects, clams, starfish, sponges, spiders, vertebrates, reptiles, insects, and dinosaurs. About 67 million years ago, there was an astronomical collision that changed Earth's atmosphere and climate, which nearly destroyed all forms of animal life on Earth, including
फॉर्म देखो किधर है सर का
the dinosaurs. But such destructions opened up new possibilities seized upon by birds and the animals. The mammals. The mammals entered Earth's life about 200 million years ago. They developed emotional sensitivity or new capacity within their nervous systems for feeling the universe. This mammalian emotional sensitivity was different with the human nerve capability. The self-consciousness 4 million years ago in Africa, humans stood up on just two limbs and by two million years ago. They began to use tools beginning around 35,000 years ago. They began a new form celebration that displayed itself in cave paintings deep within Earth about 12,000 years ago. The first Nilotic villages were formed in Jericho, Cattle, Haik, and Hosanna. It was the most radical social transformation ever to occur in the human venture. In this period, the decisive developments in language, religion, cosmology, arise, music, and dance took their primordial from the urban civilizations began to shape itself about 5,000 years ago, giving rise to new power centers by Babylon, Paris, Propolis, Benares, Rome, Jerusalem, Constantinople, Sion, Athens, Baghdad, Tikal of the Maya, Cairo, Mecca, Delhi, Tenochtitlan of the Aztecs, London 500 years ago, the first Chizur, the Inca city of the sun. Europeans initiated the third of humanity, great wandering about 500 years ago. The first had brought Homo erectus out of Africa to spread throughout Eurasia. The second was that of the Homo sapiens who wandered until they reached the Americas and Australia. The principal difference of the third wandering was that now the Europeans encountered humans wherever they went and they colonized them. From the above mentioned, it is true that today also scientists admit that there has been some evolution at last within the confines of a definite species resulting in the productions of new races and varieties. This is a fact of observation. The most extreme fundamentalists admit that all present human races are descended from one original couple, and this proposes a certain amount of evolutions, but there are fewer facts and more hypotheses as we pass from species to genus to family to order to class and to phylum. A considerable number of observations point towards an evaluation of very wide extent. Many facts can be easily explained on the basis of those hypotheses, which are difficult to interpret scientifically in any other way. Yet universal evaluation from amoeba to APE can be considered to be an established fact and will most probably always remain a hypothesis, although the great majority of scientists favor that view. As per the way of explaining explain the evolutionary process, there has been until rather recently considerable disagreement between the proponents. Good evening, sir.
4 to 6 minutes.
Okay. So which one?
Whatever is the. Yesterday I took something like.
Yesterday you were there, sir? How is it for you?
Yeah.
Yesterday.
Proponents of evaluations, the five most important explanations are Lamarck's explanation through adoptions and the inherited transmissions of acquired characteristics, Darwin's explanation through natural selections, De Vries' explanation through mutations, Teilhard de Chardin's inclusive or integrative evaluations, and Stephen Hawking's view on increase in complexity. Lamarck (1744 to 1829), a French naturalist, posited the two following laws: in every animal which has not passed the limit of its development, the frequent use of any organ gradually strengthens and develops the organ, which constant disuse gradually weakens it until it disappears. When such modifications have been acquired by both sexes in a species, they are transmitted to their offspring. Darwin (1809 to 1882) The great British naturalist postulated that three facts of explain evolutions: the accidental variations occurring continually in nature in every later some of the offspring are stronger, faster, etc. than the others. The struggle of life, the food supply is limited, and each animal has to fight to get its share of it. Natural selections in this struggle with the stronger and faster individuals were survived, with the weaker and slower and eliminated the fittest survive, and since they tend to mate with the fittest, the generations of offspring gradually improve. DeVries.
वो दिया है फॉर्म भरा नहीं है लगता है इसमें कहाँ सिया ने भरा है मिल नहीं रहा है उसको तो अंदर डाला देगा मैं बोली आने दे नहीं एक्सेल में भी नहीं डाल देगा उसको याद लगना शालू को किसने नहीं डाला इसमें इसमें नहीं डिलीट पर तो कुछ नहीं है क्योंकि उनका 7.5 है ना हाँ नहीं है ये तो फॉर्म में रहेगा फॉर्म उसने अंदर शायद डाल दी होगी एंड फर्स्ट फॉर्म मैंने उठाया था किसी और घर का मिला है which is सिया भरता रहती देखती है उसको पूछती हूँ आया नहीं उसमें
क्यों डाले व्हाट हो गया
सर का नहीं ये सर का नहीं
DeVries, 1848 to 1925, a Dutch botanist discovered the phenomenon called mutations, which consist in a sudden change in one or several of the genes of a newborn individual, producing more or less considerable changes in the animal's specific features. Such mutations have been studied extensively and even produced artificially in laboratory bred organisms, especially in the fruit fly. They also occur so spontaneously in nature where they are known as sports. Teilhard de Chardin, 1881 to 1955. When Teilhard started his career, evolution was held in suspicion, if not in condemnation. However, the accepted evolution is an undeniable fact. The basic generalized idea of evolution is that the universe and the material realities within it did not come into existence as finished products. Rather, they appeared in the course of a gradual, continuous, and progressive process. He holds that the early Earth had latent germinal powers. Everything that was to appear among humans was already there in the initial state of the universe in some extremely attenuated form. The evolutionary movement starting from the primordial atoms proceeds until the universe arrives at the center of centers, which we call cells. The omega point. At a certain point of the evolutionary movement, life soars up at another the power of self-reflections from the cells to the thinking animal, as from the atom to the cell, a single process of physical kindling or concentrations goes on without interruptions, and always in the same direction. Evolution is orthogenetic. Evolution is the development of the spiritual. Evolution is continuous. Evolution is creative transformations. It is theistic. Teilhard explained that the motive force needed for evolutionary process comes from the upward striving consequences within the cosmic matter. Other elements like struggle for survival, natural selections, mutations, and sudden changes of hereditary factors also play a part, but the development of life, which clearly strives after increasingly complex forms, can only be explained by this inner movement of the within. The within includes, integrates, and guides all the other factors. We may verbalize this Teilhardian vision of evolution inclusive of integrative evolution. Stephen Hawking, 1942, Olivesian professor of mathematics of Cambridge University, holds the view that in the process of evaluations, the most important change has been the change in the level of information contained in DNA. An increase in the level of information relates directly in the increase in the level of complexity. As complexity increases at certain stages, better forms with the more intelligence appear. This is how we have evolved from space in future better forms the more intelligence appear. This is how we have evolved from apps in future. Two, there will be a steady increase in the level of complexity in the DNA. This rate could be increased to a great extent. It could design DNAs. Thus the will have designer DNAs, and scientists will design plants, animals, and maybe even human beings. In the next 100 years, we will able to grow babies outside the bomb. Presently, human intelligence is restricted by the size of the brain that can pass through the birth canal. If the babies are grown outside the womb, there will be no such restrictions. These babies will have designed DNA structure and hence would be close to being the advanced forms of human beings. The present millennium will be dominated by two advanced forms. One form will result from the increase in level of the complexity of our DNA molecule, the advanced human forms, and the other advanced form will result from the increase in the level of the complexity of the electronic circuits, namely
Use it learn bouquet, not bouquet. Learn
computers. We are today more complex than the computers, but then the rate of increase in complexity of computers is considerable faster than the rate of
ये नहीं है किसी का रिमोट देखो
rate of increase in complexity of computers is considerably faster than the rate of increase in complexity of our brain. If both forms do not indulge in your words, they would be able to have better control over natural factors and hence could gain control over the universe. The future will bring about major changes in the human race and lead to the formations to advanced forms which probably would not look like the present day humans. It can be concluded that neither the adaptations emphasized by Lamarck nor the natural selections of Darwin nor with mutations of De Vries nor the increase in complexity of Stephen Hawking can of themselves solve unexplained evaluations. These factors have been most certainty at work in evaluations, yet the overall progress of evaluations is not explained by the blind influence of these mechanical factors. Some kind of finality seems to be required if we want to present a complete explanations of evaluation. Finalism holds that evaluation does not result from the blind interactions of the forces of nature, but is informed by a purpose. It strives towards an end order, the guidance of a directing mind, as illustrated by Teilhard de Chardin.